Prices have surged sharply this decade. The 2020s are now one of the most inflationary periods in modern American history. US retail inflation has averaged 4% so far in the 2020s, and that is the highest decade average since the 1980s. In this next report, we decode how the current decade's average is more than double the 1.8% recorded during the entire 2010s. Take a look.
Since 1950, only 2 decades saw worse inflation. The 1970s averaged 7.4%, driven by the OPEC oil embargo, the end of the Bretton Woods gold standard, and a series of supply shocks that blindsided an unprepared world economy. The 1980s averaged 5.1%, carrying the tail end of that era's price spiral before Paul Volcker's Federal Reserve broke inflation's back with punishing interest rate hikes that briefly pushed unemployment above 10%. The 2020s now sit firmly behind both, but well ahead of every other decade on record. The pain has been persistent. Inflation toppled the Federal Reserve's 2% target in 64 of the 76 months so far this decade, and that is nearly every single month. The worst moment came in June 2022 when inflation hit 9.1%, a 4-decade high that shocked households and policymakers alike. Compare that to previous decade. In the 2010s, inflation crossed 2% in just 49 of 120 months. The peak back then was 3.9%, recorded in September 2011. That now looks almost modest. The contrast is dramatic. Americans in the 2010s enjoyed relatively stable prices for most of the decade. In the current decade, rising costs have been the pattern, not an exception. Groceries, rent, fuel, and services all have climbed sharply. Wages have struggled to keep pace. Millions of families are feeling the squeeze. Inflation has become a dinner table conversation, a political flashpoint, and a source of daily anxiety in a way it has not been since Ronald Reagan was in the White House. A basket of goods that cost $100 in 2020 now costs roughly $123. The 2020s still have years to run. How this decade ultimately ranks in the history books will depend on what comes next. But the damage already done has earned this era its place alongside the most economically turbulent chapters in modern American life. Economists warn the damage is lasting. When prices rise this fast for this long, the cost of living resets permanently upwards. Business Bureau Report, WION World is One.